chairing the
Perfect.
Center for Museum Studies in the Department of Education, University of Roma Tre, for some years now. And we have been working on different issues related to education in museum studies, but with always with a focus on the use of technology, especially a critical use of technology in order to support the development of cross-sectional skills. I won't spend time on, the use, the importance of developing cross-sectional skills, because from what I could understand from Diana's presentation, she already talked about the importance, the use of digital skills and cross-sectional skills, especially in this time of pandemic we have been in, unfortunately. So the first, but just to tell you about the background of the research I'm going to introduce you. The problem where we started is, of course, the issue related to a new way of use in technology, in particular in education. The problem we are facing is not just a health problem, is a problem that is really invading our lives in every from every point of view. Now more than ever, we need to acquire new kind of skills, new kind of competencies. Digital skills are fundamental in order to be part of the new kind of society we have been put through from one day to the other. This kind of lack of meta technology abilities could really enlarge and reinforce the digital divide. So for us as educators, it's absolutely a duty to work on this, to support this kind of education within the digital skills environment. So they need to work critically to understand how to get a direction within this world is fundamental. This kind of focus of reflection is directly connected to the development of critical thinking skills, as we all might understand. And different kind of agencies support and underline the need to develop critical thinking skills. Experts agreed with the idea that critical thinking can be considered both in terms of skills and dispositions. So there are different kind of aspects that we need to take into consideration when we develop certain educational proposals. Um, this is the context where we started our work, which is of course connected to heritage experiences. I say heritage, cultural heritage experiences meant in a very wide and open interpretation, even if the example that I'm going to introduce you is based on a specific collection. But of course, this kind of work can be adapted to many different kind of collections, and is really in line. And I thank Diana for this opportunity with what Ekaterina also presented. So what did we do? We focused on this idea of developing critical thinking skills um, in technologically advanced environments where cultural heritage objects could be appreciated, but appreciated in, let's say, non-conventional way. We were not interested in supporting, of course, that could come afterwards, but we were not so much interested in transferring certain contents or historical meanings. We were more focused on the idea of supporting those skills and dispositions connected to critical thinking skills. So that's why we use some objects from an Etruscan archaeological collection to work through different kind of strategies. First of all, reflective questioning, visual thinking, digital storytelling. The idea is, of course, to bridge the gap between physical and virtual fruition, virtual experience of the cultural heritage elements, objects, through interaction and involvement, absolutely. Mm, the other idea that guided us was related to a model that was developed in another European project where we have been participating in, that is the EMI project, Eurovision Museums Exhibiting Europe, where the basic idea was related to the fact that each museum object tells a story. If we investigate that story, we understand, we can understand and we can create a different shared memory that can help developing, first of all, critical thinking, but also inclusion and elimination of any cultural barrier, because that object has gone through a series of events that can make sense of that specific reality, but also the life of everyone that can be interested in that story, and that can be related to their own story. So how can we investigate that specific object? For, for example, trying to understand where was the object created, who did it belong to through its history, was it family owned, has it been presented in traveling exhibitions and exhibited in different contexts? All these questions can tell us the story of that object, and so our own story. So we thought that organizing learning activities which combine a strong cultural basis and storytelling can constitute an effective solution for the development of critical thinking skills. So from all this framework, we developed an application, the so-called Etruria Inclusive Memory app. Inclusive Memory is the name of the project and the national university project that we have been working on through the last 2 years and a half. It was a project meant to develop from different point of views, because 7 different departments in our university participated in the project, and so different kind of subjects were involved, from engineering, of course, to education, to economics, to architecture, and so on and so forth. Anyway, within this project that was meant to use the object as a tool for inclusion, we developed this application. And we are going to introduce you some data related to the results that we obtained so far, trying to understand the impact of the experience. So as you said, as you say, as you see, there are some connections, of course, to the collection that is, as I said, an archaeological Etruscan collection reproduced here with the name of the project. Which was the fundamental research hypothesis, as you can see here, to achieve a high degree of involvement and educational effectiveness in terms of critical thinking development. In, of course, virtual environments that place the user in an active condition with respect to the interaction with the cultural object. So, we based all the activities developed within the application on the creative narration of each museum object that was taken into consideration. So there's a sort of reinterpretation of the object that meets each user, each visitor in this virtual path, and tells its own story to the user. All the narratives of every object involved are originally created in as Diana was mentioning, in a design based research approach with the participation of different kind of researchers. I mean, researchers with different backgrounds. So which were the research questions? How do students evaluate the virtual museum experience compared to the physical one? Are there any correlations among students' preferences and their personal features? Is it possible to retrieve visitors' clusters? Which level of critical thinking is shown by students? Is digital storytelling effective in terms of critical thinking development within cultural heritage context? So many different questions. Of course, the data I'm going to show you are partial, and we have been working on them, and different kind of analysis will be carried out in the next few weeks. But anyway, some information are already there and can support our first hypothesis. As regards the evaluation of critical thinking levels, we've been working on a tool for evaluation of critical thinking skills for many years now. And so we have a tool that has been tested and used in different researches. So I told you we, as a group within the Inclusive Memory University project, worked out 6 different learning paths within the archaeological collection that we took into consideration, and that is preserved within the museum, the Etruscan Museum of Villa Giulia in Rome. As I said, each object meets the visitor, the user, telling its own story. Here in this slide, you see why we called Etruria the application. As I said, it refers to the virtual journey through an assonance between the terms Etruria related to the collection and the electronic tour in a standalone virtual reality application, both for Mac OS and Windows OS environments. Technical issues, the application has 2 fundamental characteristics. On the one hand, the virtualization of the museum space and its artworks, and on the other, the interaction with and movement within it. As I said, there's a selection of objects which makes different kind of paths and leitmotifs to each path. The one that I'm going to introduce you today is related to a path that tells the way women at the Tuscan times were living, how they were considered, how they were part of the society. This was, of course, meant to meet the needs and the preferences of a certain kind of public that could be more interested in that kind of contents, and also could relate that kind of topics to their own lives, in this idea, in this vision of inclusion, in this case of the female dimension. So as you can see here, through Alpine crateri, jewels, and the well-known sarcophagus of the spouses, ad hoc storytellings have been created in their history and contents in terms of decorations and stories. Of course, to stimulate, to support critical thinking abilities. In addition to a main narrative series of in-depth analysis have also been provided. You will see these are some images taken from our application. The first idea is that of customize the learning path that can be appreciated entering this virtual environment. So some questions related to the background of the user are asked at the very beginning, and then it's possible, tossing a coin to start the visit in this virtual museum that we created. This first object is Orbe in Bucero Etrusco, and as you can see here, getting closer to the object, it's possible to know more about the object itself. So if the person is interested in the object itself, in its history, in its historical and archaeological contents, the user, of course, can go to this in-depth.
Antonella, excuse
Yeah.
me, please 2 minutes.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness. So I'll go very quickly. Anyway, they can learn more about the object, or listen to the story that the object tells about itself. Let me, I lost my mouse. This is the story. Of course, it's in Italian, but if you are interested, I can also provide a translation. Then there's a way to evaluate the experience also through the images that you can see here. These are the objects that were selected and all the stories related. But to be very brief, otherwise I can't go to the closing. Of course, there's also there are questions to understand which were the preferences and which were the preferences connected to the kind of stories that were told through the visit. We had a first pilot activity with some students from the postgraduate course in museum education, so some way experts in the field, and then we had another experimentation with the students from the master course in primary school education. So less, let's say, less expert in the field of history and archaeology, but more focused on education. Data are related to all the issues that you can see here, but because I have such a short time. Just show you the graphics, and then I mean, you can have a closer look and maybe ask questions afterwards, writing to me separately. What I can tell you in the end is that, let's go to the conclusions, that this learning path that was designed combining digital storytelling with reflective questioning, um, of course, involved, actually proved to be effective in the involvement and solicitation of visitors' critical thinking skills. From the results, that of course I didn't have the time to describe, but we can have a later talk about that. I can tell you that there's a general appreciation for the virtual exhibition, which strongly correlates with the appreciation of the object's narratives, in line with our pedagogical hypothesis. The other point that we can make in the end is that these results are of course preliminary, but they provide initial methodological and pedagogical insights regarding the design of virtual reality museum exhibition for educational purposes. And taking into consideration the time we have been living and the fact that we need to develop digital skills together with critical thinking skills in culturally enhanced environment, we think that we need to work more and to develop even more these kind of opportunities and researches, and of course technical advancements in the field. So I thank you so much for the chance to be here with you today, and I'm here available for any question.